This is Coda Radio, episode 81 for December 23rd, 2013. Everyone, you're listening to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. This episode's brought to you by our three fine sponsors, GoDaddy, Ting, and DigitalOcean. I'll tell you more about those great sponsors as this fantastic show goes on. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week for 81 weeks is our excellent host on the East Coast, Mr. Michael Dominic. Hey there, Michael.
We are wishing you a Merry Christmas!
God damn it, no! No! I thought I'd buried you. We went out to the tundras of Canada, and I dropped you off so that way you could work on that thing I needed you to work on, and then I drove away as fast as possible, and that was last night, so I don't know how you made it back to the mic in time, Jar Jar, but...
I used to use my tongue to tie to Santa's sleigh. How you doing there, Chris? I thought Jar Jar should make a quick holiday appearance.
You know what? It's a Jar Jar Christmas around here, I'll tell you that.
In my house, it is a Jar Jar Christmas, I'm afraid.
This is, normally we do Coda Radio so early in the morning that I don't get to enjoy myself a nice, tasty adult beverage, but today...
I have a drinking problem, so I drink at 7 a.m.
I don't know how this is possible, but I had a couple of drinks, just a couple of quick sips before we started the show, and it's already hitting me. I feel like I'm already got like the flushed face thing going, and my tongue just got a little tired.
Before we started, I made a gin and tonic. I'm already a quarter of the way through it, so I may need to take a refill break.
Well, I'm looking for. Well, that's good. So here's what we got. We have assembled a panel of internet experts, and they're all waiting behind the gate in our mumble room right now. We're going to do an open mic episode as we approach the holidays. It's always kind of fun to just come up with a few extra things to do and interact with the community. So that's what we're going to do on this week's episode. Now, never fret. Never fear. Boy, whatever. Whatever it is, I don't know, words. We're going to do a regular good old feedback segment too, because some of you have written in with some really good stuff, and it was hard because I had to sit on it last week, and I knew like they'd be like, oh, they didn't read my email. Oh, those jerks. And they probably swore at us and swore they'd never listen to the show again. And then if they just would have tuned into this episode, they'd know I was just being sneaky and holding on to it.
Merry Christmas, Egon.
Yeah. I wonder how Egon's doing. All right, well, Matt with the single T writes in. He says, hey guys, I'm looking at writing a little indie game, 2D, because I figured that's relevant to why I'm not using Unity. I'm mostly doing it as a programming exercise that would actually be fun. What a concept. Well, you know what? We should promote doing that more often on this show, is just writing some code for damn fun. He says, I've written a few times about Python, Golang, etc. Recently, I've been playing around with C and C++, and I really like C. I can't say I'm a fan of C++. It's a poor decision to write a game. Is it a poor decision to write a game in C and not C++? Haters gonna hate. Tell me what you think.
I'm going to help you.
Ooh.
Let's say you had C, and you liked object-oriented development, but you wanted it to be reasonable and not a pile of dog shit. So we're starting from C. We want objects. Mm-hmm. We want C to be more objective.
Yeah, buddy. What? Wait, what? Where's this going?
Objective C. Wow.
You really? Wow, man. You should just go give Scott Forstall a big man hug and just call it good. I tell you what.
I'm down with next. I am very much down with next.
What about GNU Step? You like GNU Step? Because I hear that's coming back. It's making a return.
Yeah, I think I'm the number one person to install it in the last 5 years.
Yeah, boy, oh boy.
It's me and other disaffected Mac developers. Yeah.
It's funny, you really are on the Objective-C kick, which I know.
It is my language of choice.
Why is that?
Well, I don't want to get into a whole religious thing.
Why
here,
not? Why not? Do it. I mean, you say it all the time, and I'm just curious.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not anything in Objective-C. It's just there's things I don't like about other languages, right? It's basically I like it's a simple language. It's a very small language, and it doesn't try to be clever. In fact, Objective-C is like programming on training wheels, but not the same way that programming in Real Basic is. In the way that there's only so much you can do, right? There's only so many things now. When you add in Cocoa and UIKit and AppKit, that's different. But I'm talking about the language itself. It's simple. Like, there's not 4 different types of arrays. It's an array or a mutable array. And the difference is one's mutable.
And
right?
so because you have, this is maybe not the right way to put it, but because you have a more limited set of options, the options you do have available to you, you're able to fully
use.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Even to this day, I can sometimes be tripped up in Java because I'm like, wait, what type of list do I want to use here? Wait, is this an array?
I think there's an analogy here between UIs in a sense. Like you look at the KDE UI where there's 30 different ways to set your background, and in GNOME, there's one single way. And I learned that one single way with muscle memory at a certain point. It becomes...
So the difference is Objective-C, really, it's not even about simplicity. It's like... what was the Duplo, the Legos for little kids? It's that, right? The pieces are all very simple. There's nothing clever going on in any of the core Objective-C classes.
So you can see why people kind of snicker when you say that, because they're like, well, that's like a toy language.
Oh, but it's not, right? I mean, it's a native, it compiles in GCC LVM. It's very fast, very powerful. In fact, one of the reasons people snicker at it's not because it's a toy, it's because it doesn't have some of those more complicated features that they would like.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what they would consider making it a toy, is it doesn't have...
For instance, my criticism of the way Java handles lists and the way C# and most, quote, modern languages do it is because I don't care, right? I don't want to know. I don't want to have to make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to know that if I'm an asshole and I'm writing inner loops, that I'm going to get screwed. And that's what Objective-C does. Whereas Java tries to say, well, if you use this kind, it'll do this sort of sort for you, and it'll be better. And, oh, but you have to know all of this stuff. And, we're changing it in the next version of Java. So good luck with that. Objective-C doesn't care. In fact, Objective-C questions you.
But
why do you need to do that, right?
I think what people look at it, okay, so you have its limited scope, you have its some might call it simplicity, and then you have the fact that it's really exclusively a Mac and iOS platform language.
It is not by the language. It is not exclusive.
Right, but by practical implementation, it is.
Well, that's not true. You can write a Objective-C console application right now and run it on Linux.
Sure,
easily.
you could, but nobody is. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like
I know one person.
Okay, okay, I might be wrong. Actually, it could be happening more than I realize. I don't know. If it seems like if it's so great, why haven't we seen a wider adoption?
Well, I think so. Here's the thing, and I'm sure we'll get this in a moment. The things I like about it are things people don't like about it, right? So what I'm basically saying is I don't want to pilot a 757 because I'm going to get confused. I want to pilot something where I have to manually shift the gears, but I know how it works, right? A better analogy might be that it's old, and that makes it nice and refined, and it doesn't have all the baggage of C++ trying to be 8 different things to 8 different people. More importantly, for this guy's question, it's a pure superset of C, where C++ isn't really, right?
So it's like your BSD, in a way. It's like this, you understand it, it's established, it's there's a lot of people who worked with it for a long time.
Yeah, and you know what, especially with the listing that I don't like in the other languages, there are valid reasons that those decisions were made in Java and C#.
Yeah.
It's a personal taste thing. It's just like we had in the early episodes people writing in about how much they hated dynamic typing or static typing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it's going to come down to taste. At some point, I don't know where I got this way, but I decided that I rathered a toolkit that was smaller, simpler, but more flexible.
I think your stand's falling down on you again.
My stand is actually written in C#.
So, do you feel a little internet shame for your Objective-C love?
No, but I feel weird when I talk to like Mac and iOS developers who the first thing they want to do is bitch about Objective-C.
Oh, really? And you're like, baby, you don't know how good you got it.
Well, it's like you make your living on this.
Right, yeah.
And some of the things that used to be hard in it, memory management, things like that, have been resolved.
Isn't it interesting how Apple kind of latches on to certain things, web objects, HFS plus, Objective-C.
Okay, so to be fair, web objects and HFS plus, not good ideas.
Right, okay. But I don't know. I mean, maybe you're the guy that thinks HFS is a good idea right now. That might be you.
No, so the argument for HFS plus is a pure business one, of that it's not something you can put on the box and sell more Macs. So why the hell would you invest?
Well, and they have a little bit of the canonical problem where HFS isn't a very sexy problem. They want to focus on their mobile.
But getting back to the language, Objective-C despite the popular hatred for it, is one of the reasons scrolling on iOS is traditionally better than scrolling on Android.
What, really? I thought that was more about how the camera renders the canvas.
Well, it's native. It's native code.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Just the
Right.
code is
Right. There's
executed faster.
you're writing your app in Objective-C, you can get away with a lot of crap that you shouldn't get away with in Java.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I criticize people for their for loops of doom, but you have a little more of a free hand to do that.
Yeah.
But you probably shouldn't.
Huh.
And
Well, it would seem like the market is proving you right. I mean, you
but
look
the market
at
is proving me wrong in a way. So people have taken Objective-C and they've written libraries to turn it into Java.
right, or like you have like these whole suites that people use to just avoid writing an Objective-C, and then they generate Objective-C code.
So one thing that I'm writing right now is a networking kit that's very simple. That's just going to sit on top of an NSURL connection, right? The reason for that is I used to use an old networking kit called ASI HTTP that's no longer supported, and it's been almost 3.5 years now. So
yeah, got to move on.
But a lot of folks in the space are using other kits, like Facebook's 320 basically turns the simple light language of Objective-C into a crappy enterprise language because it's just so big and so complicated if you use their framework, right? Because everything in the kitchen sink Java style. Again, and that's a philosophical difference, right? I mean, I definitely hear from people moving over to Objective-C or doing it for a project, why the hell isn't this included, right?
Right.
And my answer is always, well, because you shouldn't do that, right? Just, why do you want to do that? Or, well, I mean, I wrote this library, it's, just a simple category on a class and it works, It's a very different mindset. Certainly the way Objective-C handles subclassing, a little different to folks from the Java space, particularly when it comes to, Objective-C has the concept of categories, where you're actually adding functionality to an existing class rather than subclassing. That is sometimes mind-bending for a lot of Java and .NET guys. I think I started off saying it's better, and I'm half trolling, but I do believe that it is, compared to a lot of languages, better conceived.
It's almost like because it is of the age that it is,
right?
It's had to withstand evolution in a sense. It's had to withstand a lot of competitors. It's had to stack up to a lot of options, and it still remains standing.
Well, the thing about Objective-C is old, like you were saying, but it's also, one of the things I don't like about some of the newer languages, the Rubies and Pythons of the world, is that they seem to be optimized to minimize typing, as though typing was the limiting factor.
Right. Yeah, that is always so weird, isn't it?
Objective-C is very, very verbose. But I find that very helpful because when I come back 18 months later and look at something, I know exactly what it does.
Ah, that's a great point. There's a lot to be said to that. And, it's interesting how that has come up in different forms throughout the last 81 episodes. Hey, we're getting towards the end of 2013. It's kind of good to look back. I mean, we've talked a lot about this in Java Play. We've talked a lot about this with Azure. We've talked a lot about where sometimes when there's a little bit of magic in there, that magic can bite you in the ass when you come back to something a while down the road, or you have to step outside that box.
Right. And there's magic. I mean, once you start importing Cocoa, there are things that can punch you in the throat.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah.
But the language itself is very, very simple.
I can, you know what? Actually, I'm really glad that you answered that, because that actually gives me insight that I've never really had on that topic. And I mean, I know just from the show that you're a big fan of it, but I've never really grasped the kind of behind the scenes reason.
But to answer his actual question about his game, he should probably write it in C++. But.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
The only reason is that I strongly recommend that you look into an open source game toolkit or game framework, and they're almost all already written in C++.
Oh.
So you can cross mingle C++ and Objective-C.
Yeah.
Unless you're on a Mac, there's no reason to do that.
So C++, basically, because anytime he's going to go out and grab something, it's going to be written in C++.
Right, but I would say be very careful. I mean, if you're using MS C++ or, ANSI C++, you need to watch what you're doing, because there's weird stuff going on.
Mr. Dominic, our next question is about educating students with have you heard of this Hour of Code initiative? So we had a student write in, and actually we're recording this during the holiday break, and so we have a few new people in the audience who are watching right now who are normally at school during the Coder Radio Show. So we've got it. This is a great topic to ask. So I want to get to that. But first, I want to thank our first sponsor this week, and that is Ting.com. Ting is mobile that makes sense. My mobile service provider, and I love it. I have the Nexus 5 on Ting right now, and the HTC One, and the Evo 4G. And I did have a Note 2, but I gave that to Matt because he needed to get on Ting because he needed a mobile plan. I love Ting. No contracts, no early termination fees. That's what brought me over there. What keeps me there is only paying for what I use. Let me show you that. So I'm logged in right now. If you're watching the video version, this is my personal dashboard. You can see I'm currently, my billing cycle ends in 17 days, and my bill right now for my phone, which I use data, I use it for voice and texting, $31. Think about that. A full-fledged Nexus 5 smartphone, which I bought off contract from Google Play directly, brought it onto Ting. I pay $6 flat, and my bill right now, $31. Who out there has a smartphone plan with $31 that includes voicemail, caller ID, hotspot, tethering, all of these things, roaming, all included with the plan? You only pay for what you use. And you can see while I'm in the Ting dashboard, I talk about it a lot, but what I'm going to show you here is where you can just simply add an alert. So when, and it's kind of like if then that, so when my account exceeds X, and it could be messages, megabytes, minutes, send an email to, and then I could put the email address or a text message, or I could notify via the Ting Android app, and it'll send a push notification down to my phone. How cool is that? You can also set it just for a certain amount of time. So if you know that, well, I'm going to be recording Coder Radio for a little while, so I don't want voice on any of my phones to ring my devices either until I enable it or end of billing period. That is really nice. Think about that. Think about if you got a phone that you know you're not going to be bringing with you for a while. Go stick it in the drawer. Put it in the drawer. Just put it in the drawer, and you set that option there, and you don't have to worry about paying on something you're not using. It's pretty brilliant. And by the way, if you become a happy Ting customer, Ting has a great reference program. You can refer a friend and get $25 for everyone you refer to Ting, or $50 for your first ever referral. That's pretty cool, right? So even if you refer one person, you get $50. Ting loves doing this kind of stuff. They just wrapped up the Golden Ticket Initiative. We gave out some golden tickets to some folks in the Jupiter Broadcasting audience. Then we just wrapped up the $300 of Ting service on the Faux Show. We just gave away $300 of Ting service. They love this because here's why. Ting focuses on the customer relationship and the advantages of being an MVNO. Ting uses the nationwide Sprint network, so if you have good Sprint coverage, you're going to get fantastic Ting service, and they're able to focus on the things like the billing, the dashboard, all of the back-end services around that. The customer service, when you call in at 1-855-846-4389, a real person answers the phone. That's what they're all about. They're adding serious competition to the big carriers. They're changing up the mobile world. If you've got multiple Android devices, if you need to do testing, Ting is the perfect person for you. If you're a small business, a family, or if you're somebody like me who has massively varying phone usage. Look, you can see my minutes right now are almost nothing. Almost nothing. I average 24 minutes. I max 78 minutes because most of the time I'm using Skype or I'm using SIP or something like that. So why pay into a service plan? Why? Why pay into a big service plan that you're not even using? So go over to coderradio.ting.com. That's how you get started. Coderradio.ting.com will take $25 off your first month of service if you bring a phone. If you don't have a phone, you want to go get one unlocked, just go over there and grab it. You own that phone. You own that phone. So go get started by going to coderradio.ting.com, and they'll take $25 off that first phone. So a big thank you to Ting for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. Mr. Dominic, are you ready for this? Have you heard of this Hour of Code initiative?
I have, yeah. I
mean,
this is a larger thing.
Yeah, it is, and we don't have to. We can go into it as far as you want, or as shallow as you want. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on his question here. He says, "Hello, Mike and Chris. The standard obligatory love Coder Radio and love all the shows. I'm a student in high school, and this past week, my school participated in the Code.org Hour of Code Challenge. As someone who is able to program with some success, I was able to help out with others participating in the event. I was somewhat disappointed when most opted to meander about or play with their phones rather than do the tutorials. My question for you is this. Do you really think that coding literacy will be as important in the future as Code.org campaign makes it out to be? I'd like to think of programming in the same way as making a machine. While most people are able to appreciate the craftsmanship and the skill that goes into assembling a bike with your own hands, most probably don't have the desire or initiative to do that. While I believe it will become extremely important in the future to understand the basics of how a computer works, it won't become important to be able to write or read code. What do you think?" Fredo in the IRC. What do you think of this?
Uh, yeah, I think on the whole, this whole everybody should learn to code thing is probably a little overblown, right?
Well, can I play something for you?
Go for it.
This is a big source of inspiration. This is a clip they're using.
Everybody in this country should learn how to program a computer. Should learn a computer language because it teaches you how to think. And so I view computer science as a liberal art. It should be something that everybody takes a year in their life. One of the courses they take is, learning how to program.
What do you think of that? So this is sort of like
I think in 1996 when he said that, liberal arts had not yet been gutted to the degree they've currently been.
Yeah, 95.
And this is someone who holds a liberal art degree. I would say that it is far more important to get resources back into, teaching literature, teaching proper history, and by proper history, I mean non-politicized history. Teaching, let's say, basic mathematics in public schools, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I say this as someone who's been interviewing high school graduates and college students, and I have been, if you grew up in they actually speak English over there. If you grew up in Italy and couldn't write a sentence in English, to me, I'd be okay with that. If you grew up in, I don't know, Piscataway, New Jersey, less okay with that, right?
Yeah.
And frankly, I see this, their heart is in the right place, for sure. But the standards just in written in or verbal communication in any language, right? English, Spanish, French, whatever languages you want to teach in school have gone down quite a bit. Jobs is right, or was right, in terms of critical thinking. But again, and Chris, you may remember this, part of your English class was also a logic class, right? Where you had to take articles, I had to do this in high school, articles from the newspaper written by op-eds by the editors.
Yeah.
And point out the logical fallacies where they're trying to manipulate the reader. And I went to a poor public school, and this is how we did it, right?
Yeah.
So, for instance, an ad hominem where we say, well, Chris, Michael drinks a lot, so Michael must be an alcoholic, therefore Michael's point must be wrong. That's a fallacy, right? Because even if I was a drunk, it doesn't make me necessarily wrong. That isn't being taught anymore in favor of, and this is going to get a little political, but why do we need to teach literature from every colony of Great Britain, every former colony, when we are not even teaching basic grammar? But so yes, I think their heart's in the right place. I just think that we need to, it's obviously not a topic that's relevant for the show, but I think the education, particularly in this country, needs a much bigger reform at a much more basic level of reading, writing, and arithmetic before we get to technical skills.
This is one of the causes Zuckerberg has taken on. He's kind of been out there saying essentially what Jobs said in that quote we played. He said, that, and I think it goes back to the technical elite believe that the product of the United States of America for the future is almost wholly going to be code of some kind. Innovation.
And I think they're right, but I think the problem is a developer who can't write me an end-of-day email that makes sense isn't worth anything to me.
Right. Yeah, it's all balance. It all is part of a balanced diet.
People used to not learn code in grammar school. They used to learn grammar. Why, if the schools were doing well, and then you said, listen, we wanted to fund this extra project to increase the skills of our students.
I don't see training this as an exclusion to doing those other things.
I do. How could funding this, the money has to come from somewhere. If there's all this money laying around for education reform, why aren't we fixing the current problem?
Well, maybe
because it's not in Zuckerberg's interest.
Maybe it comes. Yeah, exactly.
Let's be honest.
Yeah,
and Mark Zuckerberg is a champion of Newark, a poor city in my area, but he's not a champion of literacy. He's not a champion of arithmetic.
What about that logic skill that it teaches you? Isn't that a valuable life skill?
Absolutely, but that can be taught through lots of other disciplines.
Yeah, like you said, like the current events type class where good point.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We can bring that topic back up with the Mumble Room if they get.
It's a very delicate issue here because Zuckerberg in particular comes to Newark and he's donating computers.
He's a hero.
Oh, he's a hero. He's getting these kids on computers, but he doesn't care that they can't even write Mark Zuckerberg. Right. So he's a kind of a little two-faced. him and his buddy Corey.
You know, I think not to, we'll move on. I'll just make this statement.
Yeah.
I think these guys, they get to a position where they feel like they need to do something, and I think they just kind of get handled, right? They have handlers who arrange these things for them and find causes for them that, well, this sounds like it's in your area of interest, so this will be Mark's cause, and we'll get this on the schedule for him. And there's not a ton of deep thought given into it. That's kind of my assumption, but I could be way wrong.
You know, it's also not sexy to go on TV and be like, I'm championing grammar. Right?
You know, the question I really wanted to ask you, and the reason I'm not asking it is because I feel like it's going to open a huge bag of worms, is maybe everybody isn't meant to be a programmer. Like me. I am not, I do not believe the way my brain is wired is, I think I can write bash scripts, and that's as far as I've ever taken it. And I find it too GD tedious. I think it is ridiculous. I think it is, I find it to be the most boring thing I could ever do. And maybe it's because I haven't done the right things, but for me, I do not believe my brain is wired to be a developer. And I don't think everybody's is. I think people have innate talents, and sometimes they're creative talents, sometimes they're engineering type talents, sometimes whatever it is, right? And you have a set of innate talents that when pushing the right buttons, you're able to achieve things that I cannot. Now, that doesn't mean I'm dumber than you. It just means that maybe I'm good at certain things and maybe you're good at other certain things. And that's how we work together as one big cohesive organism. I mean, am I wrong here?
You're right, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't teach in school, right?
Right. I mean, I took basic when I was in school. They were teaching basic, and I really valued that. Even though I don't love programming, I really value the time I spent learning it, and it gave me some insights. And then I tried other things, and that's when I kind of realized. I mean, I bought this Python book thinking I'm going to give it a go again. Maybe now that I'm a little older, I'll like it more. But
so one thing I would add though is, I firmly believe that every student in high school and middle school should, study poetry, though almost none of them are going to be poets, right?
Yeah.
Right. So if we're going to talk about the vocational usefulness of education, then we need to throw out hundreds of years of Western education. Actually, thousands.
You know what we should do instead? We should probably read Matthew's email.
We should just move on, because this is going to get rough. Yeah.
Okay.
This is going to get nasty.
I don't know where I fall down on this question, so let's give it a go, and we'll see what we think. Matthew writes, and he says, what do you guys think of all of those developers who make interactive resumes where their resume is just like one big site that's hopefully been well coded? Is that unprofessional? Like, you've seen some of these where you go to a guy's bio page and you scroll down and like his resume sort of renders up, and it's, very fancy. It's kind of a showy thing. It's not even a humble brag. It's a brag in a sense. If it's done well, that's a problem, right? It could also be done very badly, and you got to have good code. And I think it comes down to targeting your audience. What do you think?
Yeah, I've never seen that work. So just one website?
Well, let's say like you were going to hire a guy like you've been doing. You've been looking for people to talk to, which we should mention. By the way, Fingertip Tech also does contract consulting stuff too, right?
Oh, that's right. Yes. So if we have some availability. If you have a mobile or web project, or God forbid, Mac OS 10 project that you need some help with, drop us a line.
Yeah. And what's probably the best way? At Fingertip Tech on Twitter or email or what? That would
be fine. Yeah.
Okay. So when you're looking to hire guys into that gig, that racket you got going on over there at the Fingertip Tech, if somebody like gave you a resume, but then also said like, "Here, check out my website," and you went there, and it was essentially like a living version of their resume, interactive, would that turn you off? Would you call that? Would that be trashy to you?
I don't know that it would turn me off. I just don't know that I'd care. It would definitely show me a few things about them.
Would you rather just get like a link to their GitHub account?
Probably. I mean, here's the problem. If you're doing a front-end website as your resume, as your front-end website's aesthetic doesn't appeal to the person looking at it, you might have just unnecessarily pushed yourself out of a job.
True. I think the only time it's going to work really well is like if you're going to some hipster startup or whatever it is.
They'll like that.
Yeah, exactly, right?
And not because they think it's good, because they don't have to read your resume.
Yeah, right. They're actually... And then, like, okay, it also could depend on the job. Like, if you were interviewing for a video editor position at Jupiter Broadcasting and you sent me your YouTube account, that would be good for me. I could see your work, right?
So what we currently do is we ask for the resume, any GitHub profile you may have, or Bitbucket, And we actually have interns and junior folks do a test on the spot.
Your Facebook password, those things.
Yeah, no, we just have them do a coding test on the spot. So over 95% of people have failed this test.
You're kidding me.
I'm not.
That's a little disappointing.
And the test is still FizzBuzz. It hasn't changed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's been bad.
I don't know if you noticed, but FizzBuzz for the enterprise was the hot and trending topic on Google+.
I saw that.
Yeah. Okay, good. I was almost going to just +1 you in the comment section, but I thought, no, it's annoying. But I
actually, someone had sent that to us, and we did talk about it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and then it made it on, well, see, Google+ is just behind the Coder Radio Show. Well, go ahead.
So I would say if you're a designer, maybe that makes more sense.
Yeah. Or if you knew exactly who your target audience was. But otherwise, it seems like a colossal waste of time.
It just seems like a lot of work for nothing, especially since you're going to have to keep up. If you're a consultant, you're going to constantly need to keep up with the new design trends on the front end for just a portfolio site.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, really. And like, they'll be going over every line of code. Every line of code. So make sure you get that right.
I don't think that's the effort anymore.
Speaking of Facebook, we have a little, there's an island of salvation for those of you who like to engage in the social aspect of podcasts, but don't really like Facebook all that much. And I understand. I'm not a big Facebook fan myself. And so we've had a Coder Radio audience member who's really kind of been going above and beyond. It's just so awesome. I love to try to give a little bit of a thank you. And so I'll link you guys to something here in just a sec. But first, I want to thank our second sponsor this week, and that is DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean is simple cloud hosting, and man, I got to tell you, it is so slick. It's simplicity, like Mike was saying earlier, but with such amazing power that you really are able to get in and get exactly done. Here's an example. You can spin up a new cloud server in 55 seconds. Now, not only that, pricing plans start at just $5 per month, and that'll get you a 512 megabytes of RAM box with a 20 gigabyte SSD. Yes, SSD, and yes, it does make a big difference for cloud hosting. Trust me. It gets you a very fast CPU and 1 terabyte of transfer. DigitalOcean has data centers in New York, San Francisco, and Amsterdam. Possibilities there, I'm just saying. The interface has a simple and intuitive control panel, which power users can replicate on a large scale with their API, and it is a very straightforward API. DigitalOcean offers a vast collection of tutorials as well in their community section on their website, and even better, go check the link in our show notes right underneath the DigitalOcean banner, because if you submit something to the community that they publish, you'll get paid $50 per published piece. I have got the $5 per month server, and right now I have a test installation of Docker with Zimbra on it. I have BitTorrent Sync, which is so awesome. BitTorrent Sync is really going to change the game down the road for content distributors like me, because it is publishing RSS and CDN in one protocol, and it is so cool. So what I've done here at my house is I have a BitTorrent Sync, and I have a fiber connection, which is 50 up, 50 down. Pretty good, but not amazing. So I have a BitTorrent Sync running for the Unfilter supporters here at my house that has all of the contents that make up an Unfilter show. Every clip, every note, everything, every image we use, PDFs, videos, additional clips that don't make it into the show, which for every single episode of Unfilter can be a gigabyte or more of content. Then we also distribute the supporter show via BitTorrent Sync. What I have done, it's awesome, is I have it here at my house in BitTorrent Sync. I have it sync up to DigitalOcean at the same time, and then when I release it, quote unquote, to the community, they are able to pull down versions simultaneously from both my New York simple quick deploy DigitalOcean droplet and my system here at my house, which took me hours to set up, and they're able to download that sucker that totally saturates their connection, because DigitalOcean, when you combine those SSDs with that super fast internet connection, really rocks the connection. It's so awesome. So use the promo code CoderRadioDecember and you'll get a $10 credit, which if you get the $5 machine will get you 2 months of a droplet. You can really just see what it's about. I mean, try something out. See if you like it. I think you'll be pretty impressed. Coder Radio December over at DigitalOcean.com. And a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. Okay. So, are you familiar with Diaspora, Mike?
No, but I just signed up.
Oh, really?
Yes, yes, I did.
Well, Mollusk over on has been keeping a Coder Radio, like, I'm probably going to get this wrong. It's not actually a group. He tags it as hashtag Coder Radio, and then you can follow that hashtag. And this is a community kind of like a little bit like G+, but it's a community of Coder Radio posts where he has the show post there and the title and a link. So if you're a Diaspora user and you want to have Coder Radio show up in your feed, I'll have a link in the show notes. You can follow that tag. Great thing about Diaspora, right, is you can host it yourself. So he's hosting it over at homebutter.com. Huh? Homebutter.com. That's a pretty good one. And look at this. There's even a little, he's got the BitTorrent sync key in here. Wow. He's got the torrent feed in here. He's got the RSS feeds in here, the direct download, and a link to the subreddit. How pro is, and a link to the contact form. And
yeah, he's pretty good.
And a link to the donate page. Wow.
I thought this Diaspora went away. Wasn't this the decentralized Facebook? Wasn't this the whole idea?
Yes.
So like his homebutter.com, and if I did like a homemargarine.com, would not be the same.
Should we go there right now? Right. But but they would all talk to each other. Homebutter.com, a small Diaspora pod by Mollusk.
Hey, I signed up. I added him, and I'm trying to figure out how to follow the Coder Radio tag.
You know, I would love
kept the faith.
I would love to hear from the audience if this is something they're into, because I effing hate Facebook, and I use it because everybody else is using it and families on there, and that's where the audience is. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I don't particularly like Facebook.
I would love to replace it. So if Diaspora is something, or Despera, whatever, if that's something people are using.
Well, it's weird because I was using Google Plus for a time, and then it just became too crazy. And now I mean, you've even mentioned it to me. I've kind of backed off.
Social faded, yeah.
I mean, and I've even been on Twitter less. I've been very about the social thing.
I'm back on Twitter, man. I'm back on Twitter. I like the 140 character limit. I also like the fact that it loads faster than both Facebook and Google Plus. True. And it's just nice. You just pop in, I get my thing, I get out. G Plus, though, for me, one of the nice things is having, I mean, Twitter now has the picture thing, but it takes away from your overall post count.
Yeah. You know what I used to like? What? Remember, Identica?
Oh, yeah, of course. It's still active. What do you mean, remember?
Really?
It's still going. Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah.
Oh, my God. I used to chat with all my Linux homies from South America on there.
You know, this would be a good, let's bring in the Mumble Room and ask them, guys, anybody in here on Diaspora? Anybody using Diaspora? Or is it like a wet dream that is never being realized?
I have an account.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like you have an account in Identica too, probably.
No, not right now.
Oh, you.
I had one somewhere, but the problems Identica had in the beginning, where it would basically their equivalent of the fail whale, is actually the reason we started Scale Engine.
For Identica?
Whoa, go into that. Yeah, go into that, Alan.
Well, they had this software, Laconica, and it was all set up. It had, support for memcache, the support for the bit of code that almost every web app lacks, where it's like, this specific query can go to a read-only slave because it doesn't depend on anything that was updated in the last 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Whoops.
And so the latency won't hurt it and things like that. So it has all this stuff to be able to scale, and yet they would have all these problems all the time. This was back when Joyent wasn't very good yet. It would say, no suitable node available because it was all slow VMs and stuff instead of real hard. So we're like, well, I'm sure we can make this scale. And so we built this thing on this old Google server we had, a dual socket, single core Xeon. And we kind of invented this system we called Scale Engine.
and there it began.
And the first thing we ran on it was Laconica, because it was this app that was designed to scale. And it's like, well, if we can make this scale, how hard would it be to make vBulletin scale? And that's where our first 2 customers were.
And then a Canadian fortune was made.
Yeah, the Canadian Empire.
And then some Finnish person asked us to do video streaming, and that changed everything.
Well, thank goodness, because I've been able to take advantage of that. So no one on here jumped up to defensive Diaspora. That kind of actually...
Yeah, there was a different social network I saw a bunch of posts on Slashdot about recently where they were going to do crypto. Like it was going to be...
Right.
All your posts are encrypted only to the people on your friends list.
Yes, I saw that too. I saw that would be interesting, but the problem is what really drives Twitter and Facebook, and you see app developers integrating this into their apps too, is that advertising feature. I worked a little while on an MMO, and their whole point of discussion wasn't about the technology. In fact, they never, ever really talked about the technology on the back end. What they were talking about was gaming Facebook. So in the MMO, they wanted to integrate like an achievement would be posted to Facebook. Now Facebook kind of killed this when they kind of redid the timeline, and they have the feed that's always all the junk. But back then, that's the whole thing they were interested in,
having their feed of posts filled with stuff from games.
Well, who would? But back then, I mean, this was a couple of years ago.
It was all about discoverability, right? You want the person to tell other, and so for a while the games played it up even more. It's like, oh, well, you can get a bunch of free stuff if you convince your friend to come play the game.
Well, Diaspora is limited to pod setup. So the only people who see the content you provide is the people in your pod, unless you have it public, but then you still have to know where that pod is to get it. And the decentralized part of it is great for privacy issues, but it's horrible for companies.
I think probably that's why it's not seeing a lot of use.
Yeah.
Yeah, plus you also have to have somebody with a server, then you have to download the app to make it work. And where you can just go to Twitter and log in, there's so much more benefit to that most people, unless like not necessarily geeks, but people who want to have like just a small private network, it's great for them, but everybody else, not really.
So I wanted to start here as we do the open mic thing. One of the topics that I think would be kind of fun to talk about is your setup. But is anybody in here actively developing software right now, or has recently been actively developing software in the Mumble Room?
Yeah, kind of.
I'm writing code right now.
I know.
Shouldn't be, but I am.
Well, you were the one I was thinking of because
I'm at the office.
Because Alan, you've been rewriting certain things, and is this a new endeavor for you?
What do you mean?
Well, so I know you've been working on the FreeBSD installer, right?
Yeah. Right now, I'm actually just working on internal scaling.
Oh, okay. So I wanted, because one of the topics that I thought we would be interesting to talk about is when you guys are working on this kind of stuff, and Mike suggested this in the Coder Radio subreddit, is your dev setup, like kind of a little bit of your nerd porn. Like, what is your setup right now? Alan, let's start with you.
Mine is really sad, actually.
Okay,
so I have an SVN checkout of the FreeBSD tree actually on my FreeBSD file server. And then I'm accessing that over Samba on my Windows machine where I'm using Komodo Edit as my IDE to write the code.
That wasn't what I was expecting. Yeah.
Because that's what my desktop is. Like, honestly, I wrote most of the code in Nano on an airplane.
What?
Airplanes are great for productivity.
Yeah, because there's no disturbances for 8 hours.
And no internet.
To Malta. Yeah. So I had to try to have everything I wanted ready. Like, I had to have any documentation I might need already downloaded. Because and even when you have Google, finding documentation for shell script that's not specific to Bash is kind of difficult. When the shell's called just SH, Google ignores it because the word's too short.
Yeah. Oh, did you mean BSH?
I thought mine was bad, but Alan wins.
Have you purposely engineered this, Alan, so that you never need a connection, or is that just something that happened and you stuck with it?
That was just something that happened. Basically, I was like, I'm going to look at the code that's here and copy and paste a bunch of it and see how hard it would be to make an extra option in the installer menu, and then kind of grew from there.
Dude, that makes more sense because like I think everybody dreams of like the total disconnected state, but when you're actually working, like let's be honest, you want the fastest freaking internet connection you can get. You want to have a big screen. Yeah.
Rogers is digging the trenches for a gigabit to my house.
Oh. Can I move in? You got a room, right?
I do.
Okay.
Although that's where I was going to put the servers because
Very fair, very fair. Well, anybody else have their setup they want to share when they're working on a project?
I do.
Go ahead.
I have this year moved to Vim, and I've created a terminal-based setup of tmux plus Vim, and it is the best I've ever had in my life.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? Well,
I come from Windows. I've been a Windows developer, C# for years in Visual Studio.
Chris, how do I drop someone from the call?
And then I switched to Linux, and I've been doing all kinds of editors like Eclipse and what's
NetBeans.
IntelliJ?
No. Right.
Sublime Text.
There you go.
That one. And I switched to Vim, and at first it has been a pain in the ass, but when you get it all perfected, and it took nights and nights of work, but when you get it perfected, it becomes godlike.
I understand.
So,
I understand.
Yeah,
I understand honing in that perfect setup.
So what are you writing? What I mean, don't break any confidentiality, but what language, what kind of platform are you writing in?
I'm a web dev. I do Rails and Go.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay.
I use Sublime Text 3, and I have a weird plugin that makes a lot of Vim shortcuts.
Wait,
so
did you say 3?
Yeah, 3.
He did. Yeah. So you're running like the Git version or what?
No, 3's out.
It is?
There's a 3?
Yeah,
It is?
3.
Yeah, 3's been out for like 6 months.
Maybe that's what I've been. No, I don't think I've upgraded to Sublime Text 3.
I think I'm going shopping.
They don't call it Sublime Text 3. They just call it Sublime Text now. They took out the number version, but it is a third.
No. If you go to sublimetext.com, it says download version 2.02.
What?
But yeah, 3 is still in beta.
3 is in beta. Yeah, 3's in beta. Yeah.
Okay, it must be the Git thing.
Yeah. Okay.
I also
pretty
use
much anything
Vim.
with autocomplete is fine.
Well, go ahead, Rotten Corpse. Finish your thought.
Ahead.
Oh, I was just saying that I have mine. I have mine set up where that I have a plugin that gives me Vim support, so I have all the shortcuts and things for Vim inside of Sublime.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's called Vintage Mode.
Wait!
Yeah.
You only get like 1% of Vim. It isn't the real thing.
But you get all the benefits of Sublime Text plus some benefits of Vim. It's very nice.
Oh, I'm going to check that out. What's it called again?
Vintage Mode.
Nice. All right.
I tried that once, but I didn't. I wasn't satisfied with it.
Vim is good.
All right. Well, before we go on to the next topic, does anybody else want to share their fit setup? And it could be your physical setup. It could be your software setup.
Well, for me, on Windows development machines, I use a special editor called Editor. But otherwise, I use EM.
Oh, EM
editor.
Okay, editor. Okay.
And Vim, even on my Windows machine as well. But when I can't bring Vim along, I'll use this editor thing, and it is beautiful.
Oh, all right. I'll put a link to both those in the show notes.
Actually, let me ask the room this. I'm kind of surprised that nobody jumped up and said Eclipse or any of the more bigger enterprisey IDEs. Why? Is that just?
Well, I didn't get a chance.
Oh, go ahead, jump in.
All right, go ahead, Blaster.
We use Eclipse here at work. I'm not rocking it yet because I haven't moved over to the Java stuff yet, but because we're basically a Java shop.
Okay.
Yeah, that's coming soon. But for PHP development, I rock gedit.
Nice. I've gedit's great. Go ahead, Marky.
I'm just happy with a text editor on GCC, and I'm fine.
Oh wow, we always one of them. Always one of them, Mike. Always one of them. All right.
Something else that I think boosts productivity when programming is tiling window managers.
Okay, all right, Bit. Explain yourself there. Are you just because of the way you arrange the windows, you think that makes you more productive?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have to leave the keyboard like ever.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe he does tiling.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So
well,
now, and I have to ask this. I'm sorry.
Okay.
You've all ended up at Vim, and it's funny because I used to use Vim and have moved away from it because I'm lazy. It's just the maintenance of like changing things was getting to me. How did that happen? Right? Did you guys just wake up one day and be like, you know what? Was it just configuring heavy IDs
right.
was too much work? Was it
like did you try everything else and eventually like screw it? I'm just
gonna... let's be honest. Is there a certain nerd cred factor to doing all your coding in a text editor?
I started programming long before these IDEs came out.
An answer.
I actually prefer Sublime Text kind of thing because I get the text editor and they get some project management function as well. And the main thing is because I don't like some of these IDEs are kind of bloated, so I don't really want to run those.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, when I started off, I was actually using my netbook to do programming. So imagine trying to open up Eclipse or NetBeans on a netbook.
Okay, those are all valid answers.
The way how I got interested in Vim is I was watching a presentation from some Node.js guy, and he was just flying. He was morphing his code so fast. I was thinking to myself, holy moly, that's incredible. So that's why I decided to try it. And it is true. Right now, with Vim, I'm like 5 to 10 times faster than I was in all the other text editors. But it's not about the speed. that is attracting me to Vim. What is attracting me is that it's so fun and it feels so good to work with it. It just feels so natural and organic.
I understand that because I every time I move away from Final Cut when I trial another editing suite, I miss all of the hotkeys because I can rip through an editing by just all with the keyboard. I never take my hands off the keyboard. I cut, snip, and it's so nice. So I totally understand that workflow aspect of it too. And Vim is great for that.
It's funny because I used to use Vim for all my basically non-Objective-C stuff, right? And I've now ended up at Sublime Text, which I'm finding is a happy medium between, quote, IDE, even though it's not an IDE, and pure text editor.
Right. Yeah. Sublime Text is like my 2013 software pick, I think.
Yeah. Now, at my internship, I also have to use Xcode now.
Oh, really? So is this your first time? Okay. All right, hold on. Hold that thought. If this is your first time using Xcode, I want to get your thoughts on that. And I think this is going to be a good one for Mike to listen to. But first, I want to thank our final sponsor, but maybe our longest sponsor ever of the Coder Radio program. Yes, definitely. It's GoDaddy. It is go time over at GoDaddy.com. And Coder Radio is brought to you by GoDaddy. Their website builder makes it easy to create your own website, put your business online, and find new customers. Choose from hundreds of customizable designs, and you are on your way. Website builder even includes a free domain, hosting, and 24/7 support. Now think about that. 24/7 support means if you're the tech member of your family, you're about to go to holiday events, 24/7 support means they can call them, not you. Remember that. Just use the promo code WSB8 when you're checking out, and you'll get Website Builder for $1 per month. It is definitely go time. Go over to GoDaddy.com, use WSB8, Website Builder 8, to get a website for $1 per month. It includes their awesome brand new interface designer, their sweet, excellent SEO optimization, and of course, their practical mobile spinout that makes a website work on any mobile device. There are some limitations, so go over to their website. You can get more details. $1 per month, people. I'm telling you, go take advantage of this while you can. Go own that. Trust me, this is worth it. If you don't have your own website for anything, your name, your business, your project, your app, whatever it is, you need to have something online. Otherwise, somebody else will own it. It's just a matter of time. So go over to GoDaddy.com and use the promo code WSB8 when you check out. And thank you to GoDaddy for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. All right, so resume your thoughts, sir. So this is your first time using Xcode. How has it gone?
It's a mixed bag, basically. Sometimes it's nice, but when it doesn't behave the way I want it to, there's like no way to configure it. So it, for example, with indentation, I haven't found the settings for, well, either you like have to turn indentation off, or not indentation, but automatic indentation. But you can't like that it indents the way that you want it to. So it's annoying.
How do you mean?
Well,
you mean
for example,
tabs versus spaces?
No, not tabs versus spaces. Okay. For example, when in Objective-C, when you implement or define interfaces,
right?
I like to indent between the end and the beginning, and it doesn't want to let me do that.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I put the semicolon, it de-indents it, and it's pissing me off.
That's a funny thing. I mean, that is a great example, though, in a way. It's a minor thing, but at the same time, it really grades on you. And you wonder why they don't let you just set it the way you want.
Yeah. I'm considering like setting up Vim to use with Objective-C, but I don't know how that's going to work out.
Yeah, it's so Xcode used to be super unstable, and like the Xcode 3 days, and I tried that. It's not worth the effort. One thing I would say is that if you're working on an Xcode project with a lot of people, you're better off just embracing the way it lays things out, because almost nobody touches those settings.
Yeah, I guess.
Not out of choice, but because, I used to have my custom text settings for Xcode, but it just became too much hassle to try to enforce that on people.
We are like 2 people or so, though, so it's not
right.
a lot
It's a little
of people.
easier. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's start with Mike, and then maybe I noticed Derwiz has joined us. I'd love to get his thoughts on this too, and we'll maybe expand out to Alan as well. So Sig Interrupt asked, on the business side of software development, I'd like to see some discussion on the different forms of freelance work, e.g. direct contracting, subcontracting through an agency, elance type gigs, etc. So I've done both myself. Mike, it seems like these days you're kind of going more direct contract work, right? Have you done the work through another company where they get you the work and you subcontract?
Yeah, I do that a lot. Never done the elance thing, though.
Okay. What are your thoughts versus direct contract work compared to going through a company that gets you the work and you're a subcontractor to them?
Well, subcontracting has a big disadvantage in that you usually can't show it in a portfolio, right? But it has the big advantage of usually the risk isn't on you for the project.
Yeah, or you really
don't have to sell it either.
Yeah, or the billing.
You don't have to deal, you don't have to deal with the client, and it's very easy to say, well, you're kind of insulated from a lot of the risk that every project has. But sometimes you're
more likely to get paid on time.
Right, but you're also more likely to get paid a little less too.
Yeah,
the agency takes quite a cut. I've not done it for programming, but we've used GuruLink to work as sysadmins for other places.
Oh, so
not anymore. But.
So GuruLink would contact you when they had a gig?
Kind of, yeah. And basically, they would bill the customer a higher hourly rate than what we charge, and we would get paid what we charge.
Okay.
The disadvantage there is that the agreement prohibits us from becoming an employee of the place we were contracting.
Right, there's a no compete.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, not quite no compete, but yeah, you can't, work there via GuruLink and then start working there directly or consulting directly and cut GuruLink out of the loop, which it makes sense for them, but it's a complication.
One thing I would want to ask, Alan, is have you seen any change? Although maybe it's different for sysadmins, but over the last year, I've seen significant negative pressure in terms of budgets for development projects.
We don't do that anymore. We're too busy.
You don't even do that.
Well, yeah, you got out. Okay. You got out.
You got out for Scale Engine. That's fine.
Yeah,
right. And before that, to get the money to start Scale Engine, when we started, we were a consulting firm, and we did, whatever various clients wanted us to do.
Right.
We went as far as Stefan was on the track to get a private investigator's license to deal with some of the type of things we were getting into. One was an employee that worked at this one company, and they suspected that there had been some communication with another company and some stolen stuff, and then he magically left and went to work for this other company. So, after a lot of yelling back and forth, they managed to get the laptop they had loaned him back, his employee laptop. And we were given it and did a forensic analysis and managed to find in the internet history, the spell checker on Hotmail saves your draft emails to the disk to run the ActiveX spell checker on them.
Wow.
This is back in 2007, 2008, something like that.
ActiveX, everybody.
Yeah, so there's these temporary files, various drafts of these emails on his hard drive that were managed to extract and prove that he negotiated with this competing company to actually sell trade secrets to them.
Oh.
And show emails of him setting up his utilities to go and move to Texas to work for this company while he was still working for the first company.
Now, I was wondering, I want to do a little probing here. So, Derwiz, is your mic is hot, right? You're live. Are you with us?
Hello, Mr. Fisher, long-time listener, first-time caller.
Well, so for those of you who aren't familiar, a while ago you sponsored a couple of episodes, and you work on software yourself. You have you own your business, it's an independent software development company. You focus on the enterprise, great niche, by the way. And I'm wondering, did you ever live time as a contractor, and do you have any perspective on this whole working through an agency, working directly with the customer situation that our submitter is dealing with?
Yeah, we went through, we were consultants long ago. Actually, I used to run all the United States supporting a piece of software, and we moved into straight products about 10 years ago, and I've never looked back. For those consultants out there, good for you.
So it was just, you decided to bail.
Oh, totally. Yeah, we completely got out of it, and that's how we ended up developing our own product. Actually, the product we were selling got acquired by Microsoft, and so we decided to develop our own product. And the way I designed the product was that we could infinitely support it via email and online. So 99% of our customers we've never actually physically met.
That wasn't Dynamics, was it? Or
no, it was a company called Zoomit.
Oh, okay.
This was back in '99. They had the first meta directory product back then, and Microsoft acquired it, and it was called Microsoft or MIS. Now it's Forefront Identity Management.
Oh, sure, yeah. So I was wondering, Mike, you are kind of wearing two different hats here. You've got the direct software creation business where you sell software, and you're also doing the contract thing. If you could just wake up one day and the tooth fairy was sitting at the end of your desk and says, Mike, I'm going to grant you whatever wish you want, and you could say contract or direct software sales, which would you pick?
After the last quarter, I would definitely say direct software sales. Yeah. And this might just be I'm too close to the matter right now, but I found that even subcontracting, straight contracting has become much more brutal than it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
The competition. I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just saying, we're talking about like all the different things. Like if anybody's ever done anything, I've done like across the board, the direct sales, the subcontracting, the regular contracting, like the ELAN stuff. And it's more like none of it. It's a good option. They're all horrible in many different ways.
Well, it seems like at the end of the day, so there's two things. I've done the work for a company, and they subcontracted essentially, and I've done the direct contracting. The direct contracting for me, all it requires is the ability to sell. If you can sell, if you in your peer group have convinced many people to switch to whatever you want them to switch to, or if you are passionate about something and you can sell, then you have the qualifications to do direct contracting. You will make more money, but at the end of the day, what matters more than anything else is you control that relationship, and it all rides on you. If you work with those people, you will make that business account succeed. The problem is when you go through another company, you forfeit control to them, and they will F it up. It's just what companies do. They F it up all the time. And when it comes to making money, keeping a roof over your head, you should have as much direct control over that as possible. So my vote would always be go direct. Now, secondarily, if I could, I would sell something to people directly. I wouldn't. I feel like the contracting business is continuously being redefined every couple of years. It doesn't matter if it's software. It doesn't matter if it's IT. It doesn't matter if it's security. It doesn't matter if it's the guy that keeps the carpets. It all gets constantly redefined because management changes, business goals changes, and budgets change every single year. And that means the contracts change every single year. And if you can ride that out, if you're in a position to flow with that, if you're comfortable with that, if you're comfortable not knowing all the time, then it's for you. But otherwise, you got to reevaluate.
I tried ELANs not a long time ago, and the way I would describe it is really just a race to the bottom.
Yeah, I think Skook says it best in the chat room is you have to be prepared to constantly reinvent and reevaluate what it is you're doing. And you have to realize if you're going the direct contract route, which I would recommend if you're going to be a contract worker, it's hard to do initially, but go work for a company for a couple of years, take what they do right, incorporate that into what you want to do, and observe what they do wrong and fix it. And then go directly to the client yourself, and you'll be much happier.
I was saying that there's definitely different there's pros and cons to all of it, but when it comes to like direct contact, the control is very nice, and you really don't have to worry about someone undercutting you and and trying to like for the agencies and things like that. I've had some subcontracting work right now that the only benefit is if they screw it up, it doesn't go back on me.
Right.
Well, right. And that's the chief benefit of subcontracting, though, right? If the project goes south,
right, you got a shield.
The client goes after the primary company, not you. Yep. Because they probably don't know about you.
But the reality is, it usually goes south because somebody messed up on the communication.
It's always about expectations, and
Yep.
Always.
Yep. And usually, if you are in more direct control, you have a better chance of correctly setting those expectations, which down the road will usually result in things going successfully or at least amicably. But the problem is there is a disconnect between the people setting the expectations and the people doing the work when you're a subcontractor. Right?
Well, so one situation I found myself in last year, in 2012, was that I was working with a company that was subcontracting a lot of work to me. And I later found out that the reason this happened was that they had laid off their entire development staff. And so Fingertip became their development department, which was awesome for like 3 months.
Right.
Then an invoice was late, and I let it slide for about a week.
Yeah.
And then it turns out the way they were so busy was that they were gambling on bidding super low on all of these projects, just enough to cover their costs with us, and then not delivering.
Yeah. Yeah, because they just want to get their foot in the door. They just want that contract.
Right. Because what they figured is as soon as the guy signed the SOW or the contract, they would be able to parlay that into, well, this is additional scope, so we need to charge more.
Yep.
Because they were, I would say, a little too aggressive in trying to combat offshore competitors.
And the other problem is they are managing, quote unquote, the scope creep, as it is, and so like there'll be creep, and then it's just when it comes down to you, it's like, oh, here's what you need to do. There's like no discussion, there's no conversation, there's no whatabouts, there's just deliver, and you're left in the position to either put up or shut up.
Right, and what happened is, of course, we put up for a while, but eventually the financial situation came where it was just like, pay us or we walk away.
Good for you, sir.
Well, it's not good though, because it's...
Well, no, I think it is good. You stand up, you say pay up or shut up, means you're not going to waste your time on that.
Well, it's true.
Well, they typically shut up though.
Right.
That's true. That's why it's good point. Yeah, that is the downside. All right. Well, Mike, is there anything else we want to cover? I do have a book pick.
You have a book pick?
Do you want me to do it was a recommendation that was sent in to us. Scala book recommendations from Kyle.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I figured it was time, right? We spent a couple of weeks since we've talked about Scala, so it was time. He says, hi, Mike and Chris. I'm not sure if you're able to fit this in, but the book I want to recommend is called Atomic Scala. Learn programming in a language of the future. And it's aimed at beginners. Now, Scala might be the best language for noobs, given its complexity. Might not be the best language for noobs, given its complexity, but I think this book is good for two groups of people. Number one, those who are trying to learn the basics of functional programming by using Scala. And number two, those who are moving to Scala, but do not have experience programming in Java. These are there are many great Scala books like Programming in Scala, a comprehensive step-by-step guide out there, sure, but they are generally aimed at intermediate-level programmers with prior Java experience. The authors of Atomic Scala have broken down their sections into easy-to-learn mini chapters with practice exercises. They call them atoms, and they have avoided any mention of other programming languages in the text. That is, actually, I gotta say, as somebody who would be wanting to, if I was just gonna walk around at Scala, I actually very much appreciate that. I think this makes the book really stand out. There is a free trial download of the first quarter of the book on the author's website, and examples and solutions. The book is new. It wasn't on Amazon last time I checked, but it is DRM free in PDF, EPUB, or Mobi packages available for download on the author's website, and the print book can be ordered from there as well. Hopefully this book will help more people take up Scala, which thankfully is also compatible with Mr. Dominic's beloved Java Play. Thanks for the great shows, Kyle. So it's Atomic Scala, learn programming in a language of the future. And he recommends that. So there you go. Maybe if you want to have a little fun over the holidays, that might be a solution. Right, Mr. Dominic?
Gotta love that Java Play, man.
All right, so is there anything else we want to cover on this week's episode of the Coda Radio program?
I think we're good. Let's have that person email in that UI stuff to us, and we'll go over it. Maybe cover it the following week.
Very good, sir. All right, everyone. Well, we'd love to have you join us live. Head over to jblive.tv, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. Also, contact the show. We want to get your feedback. That kind of is what we do at the beginning of every single show. It's important to us. Head over to jupiterbroadcasting.com and pop that contact link and choose Coda Radio from the drop-down. Mr. Dominic, is there anywhere you'd like to send folks throughout the week?
DominicM.com.
Pow. The powerhouse of knowledge over at DominicM.com. Follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/ChrisLAS. And head over to the show notes. We have stuff we've talked about linked over there, as well as links to our other social profiles. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Coda Radio. We'll see you right back here next week.